Arena, legal portal that provides free access to US law and builds active community around lawyers. And I'm very happy to welcome all of you to our first online webinar. I understand that with autumn comes anxiety and even more stress, especially for legal practitioners. That's why we decided to talk about lawyers' mental health. Firstly, while we are still waiting for others to join our webinar, let's get to know each other better. Please write down in the chat answer to the question. Have you ever attended webinars on mental health? So we are waiting for some answers in our chat. Okay, please be active. It will be great because we will have two prizes for the most active participants of our chat, of our webinars chat. So please write down your answers to question. Have you ever attended webinar on mental health before? Okay, I see first question from our participant. And I just think that like one more answer to our question, and then we will go to the next point of our discussion. Be active, guys. It's like it's autumn, and for lawyers, it's always tough because you have a lot of deadlines, a lot of tasks ahead. So we need to take care about our mental health and then take care of our clients' work. So I see other answers in our chat. Then move to the others. Important thing before we start. So two authors of the most outstanding questions will walk away with prizes from our webinars partner, Elevation, whose mission is to help lawyers to understand that they need to help themselves before they help others. And it will be 7-day guided meditation to radically reduce your stress and improve your focus while you're working. So please be active in our chat. Please write down your questions to our speakers. We will answer them during the Q&A session. And our wonderful moderator, Jolene, will choose two winners in the end of the webinar. So listen carefully and don't be shy to ask your questions. So before we start, let me introduce our guests. Please meet our co-host and moderator of today's discussion, Jolene Blackburn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jolene, and I am a California attorney. I help prospective law students. I help them save time, money, and stress. So this is definitely an important topic for me. And I do that through counseling courses and my own podcast, Legal Learning Podcast. So you're welcome to see more information there. But we have a lot in store for you today. I'm so excited to host this. And as she said, be active in the chat. If you like what you hear, let us know. If you have questions, let us know. We're going to try to address them.
Thank you, Jolene. Happy to have you with us today. And let's meet our speakers. Olga Mack, CEO at Parley Pro, the collaborative and intuitive contract platform, speaker, women's advocate. Hi, Olga.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hi. So our next speaker is Julian Serafian, former corporate attorney and graduate of Berkeley and Harvard Law School. He's currently authoring a book exploring content creation and advocating for mental health. You can find him primarily on TikTok. Hi, Julian.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
And the third speaker is Pamela Dinoff. She's author, lawyer, and law firm strategist at Dinoff and Associates, and she's member of steering committee for programming for the national organization, the Institute for Wellbeing in Law. Hi, Pamela.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Okay, so thank you guys for joining us, and let's talk about mental health. Jolene, the floor is yours.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I'm so happy to be here hosting for you guys today. I know you're going to walk away with some great information. I'm going to start out with some statistics. The American Bar Association did a study a few years ago. What they found was that 30% of attorneys suffer from depression, about 20% suffer from anxiety, and approximately another 20% had problematic drinking. Now, as worrying as those numbers are, I don't even think they scratched the surface because they only studied practicing attorneys, not those who had left or been forced to leave or had addiction problems besides problematic drinking. So the problem is prevalent in the legal community. It's a super important topic. And not just for those who have pre-existing mental health issues, but even those who've never even had an anxiety attack before. I definitely had my first one in law school. I thought these numbers did not apply to me, but law school proved me different. So we have some pretty good questions for you guys today with some great people to answer them. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. So I'm going to ask for each answer to be responded to by a particular person so we keep this all organized and together. And so let's go ahead and get into question number one. So what are the most common mental health issues in the legal sphere? Why don't we start with Pamela?
Okay, those are very good questions. I encounter them all the time. And one of the main issues is chronic anxiety, depression, and also a lot of lawyers have ACD. What is it? Oh, I'm drawing a blank here. But a lot of lawyers, they have a hard time actually carrying out, they are easily distracted. ADHD. Okay, that's what they, so a lot of lawyers, and that contributes to the stress, it contributes to the anxiety. And, you know, I talk about stress. Stress is what's going on outside of you, the circumstances and the situation. And the anxiety is what's inside of a person. So whatever's going on the outside is happening, and then how the lawyer actually responds to those situations is what causes anxiety. And if they are anxious long enough, chronically, then that actually leads to depression.
Yeah, it's really cyclical. It's hard to get out of that cycle once you're in it. It's really nice that you define the difference between the outside source and the inside source, because I think when we're in there, it just feels like it's everywhere and we don't know where to go. Julian, do you have something to add to that?
I think Pamela hit the nail on the head. We have, and as did you, Julian, we have structural issues, and the numbers are scary. I would only add that I think the problem is compounded by the fact that lawyers don't talk about these things or take them seriously at all, in my opinion, in the profession, at a structural level, at an institutional level, at an educational level, at an academic level, you name it. There's kind of just this gap of any sort of conversation happening. And people are left to their own vices to figure it out. And we know how that ends in a profession that's built on service and providing, the best in class. Let me get it to you earlier and earlier and earlier, and let me outdo the other lawyer by being the best lawyer here for the clients. We have a lot of work to do. That's all I would add.
For sure. And you mentioned something very important, which is, there's that internal, I want to be the best, or at least the best I can be, but it is a competitive environment. And then externally, yes, we have the firm that, one, doesn't want us to commit malpractice, right? We don't want to commit malpractice. But two, they want us to be the best attorneys we can be for the clients, keep all the clients happy. And there's just that constant, nonstop pressure to always be the best.
Yeah.
Olga, what do you have for us?
I think Pamela and Julian identified the problem pretty well. I guess the only thing I will add is that it's sort of an equal opportunity in the law firm, yes, but lawyers do much more than that. They work in house government, they work in legal tech startups, They work in business roles, they work in legal roles, and those challenges from anxiety to depression really prevalent in all of the above. And so we should be cognizant that this challenge is not limited to practicing in a law firm.
Definitely. And it's funny, I see a comment here from Katrine. Who cares about mental issues? The job needs to be done. So as you're saying, Olga, it doesn't matter exactly what we're doing. It's just a job that needs to be done well. And we definitely have the external and internal pressures no matter which field we go into, whether it's trying to help a person, help a corporation with millions of dollars, it doesn't matter. Pamela, do you have anything to say in relation to what Julian or Olga said, or a work experience that you're thinking of that triggers this whole stress conversation?
Yes, I wanted to, with what Julian said when he talked about, that they're kind of trying to figure it out themselves. Law firms, especially after the report that you discussed earlier, have provided resources within the firm, but lawyers are not taking advantage of that because they don't. It's still a stigma. They're not going to go to someone inside the firm and say, I'm depressed or I'm anxious. So it's a really big secret. All the clients that I work with, like, I don't want anyone to know. I gotta hide it. Don't send anything on my work email. So there really is a lot of shame. There's a lot of stigma. And as Olga said, it's not just the lawyers and law firms, it's across the board. And it's because of generally of the training in law school that leads to this competitive nature, to feeling like they need to be the best, a lot of perfectionism, and a lot of lawyers learn how to survive by using tranquilizers, prescription, or alcohol to be able to get through it. And so there's a lot of prescription abuse. I have clients that said, "Oh, I got to take my Klonopin, before I go on this depot or whatever." So people are really abusing these things, and they're feeling ashamed about it, which makes them even dig in themselves deeper in the hole.
Yeah, definitely. There's been people I've interviewed recently on my podcast that have talked about, I see a therapist, they're in law school. And I just was so just honored that they shared that, because I think there still is that stigma. And the fact that we are starting to share this more openly with the public, I'm having some issues. It doesn't matter how big or how small, that we are sharing, that we are getting help for that, I think will encourage more people to get the help that they need. And there's so many ways to get it, whether it's talking to your classmates, talking to professors, talking to your boss, or if you don't feel comfortable, a therapist. And I do want to just mention, because I'm seeing in the comments, Katrin, sorry, I don't know how to say that exactly, but no, I took that definitely with irony. I agree with you. Julian, did you have anything to add?
Nothing that you guys haven't touched on. I just think I would echo what you said, Julian, about people being more open and having these conversations, because the perfect world for me is where you walk in to the coffee room and you have a cast on your leg, right? And your colleagues say, "Oh, cast on your leg, what happened? Let's like chit chat. Oh, let me tell you about this time I was hurt," right? You walk in and you say, "Oh, my anxiety's horrible." And suddenly everyone's like, "God, what do we do?" Like panic, ring the alarm. We have no idea how to discuss these things. And I get it, because we collectively are inexperienced in talking about these things that are vulnerable, perceived as vulnerable, however you want to put it, mental health issues. But every time we talk about it, it becomes a little bit easier, and I think we can lead by example in a way. So I agree with you, Julian.
Absolutely. I am seeing more in firms that they do provide different resources. I think law schools are starting to, it's my understanding, some law schools are starting to provide meditation in the classroom, supplemental classes and things like that. And so I've heard of a few different schools that do that. So it's, a long way to go, but the resources are out there. And definitely if you are a pre-law student, if that's something important to you, you might want to also put that on your list when you're comparing law schools, when you're applying. And certainly with firms, it's something you can ask in an interview. What do you guys do? I know my old firm, we used to hike. It was great. It just really released some of that tension. But as Julian said, it's so hard sometimes to just let that out fully, what you're really feeling. Because even with a coworker, you're afraid it might get back to the boss. And I remember when I was 18 in college, I saw a girl, hey, how you doing? And she said, I'm depressed. And I had no idea what to say. I was blown away. I thought we were all supposed to say, I'm fine, how are you? And that's it. And she was real. And I had never experienced that before. And the more we do that, I think the less the stigma and the more we'll be able to work through this and have better mental health. Olga, any last thoughts on this?
I think, we all have anxieties. We all have moments of anxiety. And I think that's normal to have moments. It is when moments become prolonged and limiting to our lives, that's when we need to seek help, often professional help. And I think there is I am with Julian that these conversations are not normalized. And partially, I think there's another reason of us not knowing the difference between sort of normal worrying and, because, worrying and, experiencing stress in different ways is normal. And not knowing the difference between that and when those moments become a little too prolonged and limiting in your lifestyle. Most of us are not educated about that difference. And so we group all stress, all anxiety, all worrying in kind of one bucket. And it's a little bit like taking all birds from dove to pelican and say it's all the same. It's not all the same. And being educated about those differences is sort of the very first step, because part of it is normal reaction, and some of it, needs to be sort of addressed by yourself. You can kind of learn techniques, and at some point, you actually need to seek professional help. And knowing where like that continuum is for you, well, generally, and for you personally, is a very important thing to do.
Yeah, that's a good point, Olga. I think certain stress, for example, right before trial, as you're prepping, as you're about to get started, as the judge calls out the court reporter to get it going. I mean, that's all a high stress situation, and it may hit us each differently, but that's an understandable level of stress versus, I'm just doing the paperwork in my office, checking my emails, and suddenly I'm for no reason having an anxiety attack. We need to be very aware of ourselves and what is going on around us. And when we've hit a level of, I shouldn't be having an anxiety attack right now. All right. And then I think, let's see, Miles had said something about why do you think many lawyers find it hard to admit that their mental health is suffering? And I think, I can't remember who it was that said this already, but that, we're a bit of perfectionists. And so it's hard to admit we're not perfect. And if we do admit we're not perfect, that could sometimes cause malpractice. So it's this, again, big circle of we must be perfect or very close to perfect all the time. So, okay, let's go into question number 2. Keep those questions coming, guys, in the comments. It's great. We want to make sure we address as many questions as possible. And again, there will be time for Q&A at the end with a reward for some of you who participated. So, okay, let's see. Question number 2. Let's see. So, okay, we know taking care of our mental health is, it's an upward trend. We are moving in the right direction. But we are, as professionals, always working under pressure, the strict deadlines. So we kind of covered this, but why specifically should lawyers be thinking about mental health? Let's go ahead and start with Julian this time.
Sure. I think it's a funny question, because when I hear it, I'm thinking, how have we come to a place where we're even asking this question at all? Not just for lawyers, but for any industry or any profession or any person. I mean, mental health is as important, if not equally, if not more. I'll debate all day on it than physical health. If you don't have your mental health, you don't have fulfillment in life. If you don't have fulfillment in life, what's the point, right? Like and I think this is why we see so many issues in the legal profession, because we ignore these feelings that we have about how we're spending our time and what is gratifying and what is edifying and what is not. And naturally, when you ignore and suppress, doesn't result in positive effects on your mental health, which results in substance abuse disorder, like we discussed, escapism, a lot of these things. So I think we need to focus on it, because that's the whole point of this ride we're all on together and having fun, right? And if you don't have that, you don't really have anything.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is the core. And it's hard when people start to focus on nutrition and stuff when they're not feeling well, when again, while that's definitely important, a lot of times we focus on that physical aspect and we don't actually dig deep enough to realize, you know what, it's not about, my candy bar I had today. It's about the fact that mentally I'm just not well. Pamela, do you have something to add to that?
Well, when we think about the rate of suicidal ideations among lawyers, it is startling. So according to the report that you alluded to earlier, 11.5, so let's just go with 11. 11 lawyers out of every 100 have suicidal ideations. So let's take, let's multiply that by 5. You have a room with 500 lawyers. You have 55 individuals who have had suicidal ideations. I personally, a lot of the clients that come to me tell me I'm suicidal. There was a lawyer that called me that said, I went to the top of the building to jump off, and he was too polite there were people standing below, and he didn't want to spatter on the people below. That's a serious statistic. So, we can talk about stress, we can talk about anxiety, we can talk about addiction, we can talk about all that, but we're literally talking about people's lives. I was at the Bar Association in Atlanta, Georgia, and the lawyer went to the top of the building and took his life. I think that many people at least know of someone who's taken their life, or they've heard of someone who's taken their life. So this isn't, like, oh, I got a headache or I have a hangnail. We're talking about a culture where this amount of this percentage of individuals, at least maybe they don't have a plan. The people that I've talked to, the guy that called me, who, by the way, didn't want help, but he just wanted someone to talk to. But, this is a very serious problem. And a lot of lawyers don't have a plan, but they say, you know what, I don't want to live. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. But, a lawyer, once a lawyer, always a lawyer. Where do you go? The in-house positions are rare. There's not a lot of in-house positions. They're in a firm, they got to work a firm, they don't know any other career to do. A lot of them, younger lawyers are, but especially the older lawyers, and they've got bills, they have, college tuition, they have kids they have to put in college, because I get a lot of boomers who come to me, and they have to practice law another 10 or 15 years, and they hate waking up in the morning. They don't know where to turn, and that's what happens, that a lot of them end up there. So, not only is it a lot of, addiction, which is serious, but the fact that so many lawyers want to take their lives is, this is a crisis situation. Dentists used to be the highest with suicidal rate, but now lawyers have taken their place. And, this is, it literally this is literally a crisis situation.
That's a really scary statistic. I knew it was high. I didn't know the statistic. So thanks for sharing that with us, Pamela. Yeah, definitely something needs to be done. Again, it's somewhat of that perfectionist mentality that we have. We're very ambitious and very driven people. We want to do well, but there comes a point where it's just no longer healthy to keep going. And as you were mentioning, they had to keep working. There's a lot of reasons why we have to keep working. Some of it is our own student loan debt. So we might be burnt out, we might be tired, but it's hard to transition areas of law, leave law, just even take a break because we have these bills from ourselves. And then, yeah, as we have kids and they grow, whether they have special needs or they need braces and they go to college, I mean, there's a lot of expense involved that keeps us going. And it's not even this high level lifestyle, right? It's just an average lifestyle, even because most lawyers aren't necessarily making the big bucks. They're making decent money, but with that debt to income ratio, it also lowers that a bit. So it really gets us stuck. Let's see, Olga, what do you have to say to that?
I generally agree with everything was said. I think, most lawyers have the added stress of having others in their care. And that could be a client, or that could be other lawyers on their team. And having other people in your care sometimes means that you don't put your own oxygen mask first. I think, practically speaking, I think it's very important for lawyers to pause and take an inventory of everyone who is in her care. And I think it's very important to start with yourself. And we are not taught in any stage of our career to either take an inventory nor to check in with ourselves. And I find that lawyers who either naturally do that or have learned skills to check in who's in their care, including herself, are better equipped to identify, address issues, and seek help. I think it's a mission critical skill.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. It's very hard when we're taking care of other people to find the time to take care of ourselves. And, then you throw a curveball in there like COVID, it makes it even worse. A lot of attorneys found themselves working from home, taking care of children at the same time, trying to juggle it all, and probably also did not have their mental health relief that they used to have, their recreational activities, going out with friends, that kind of thing. So if you don't have a good system in place when you're thrown those curveballs, whether it's COVID or anything else in life that just shifts, it makes it even harder. Julian, did you have any feedback based on the things that Olga and Pamela said?
No, honestly, no. I agree with everything they mentioned, and I think we just need to have more of these conversations.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've noticed at work, and it can be historically or through friends' work, that you've noticed has been helpful to helping people discuss mental health and improve mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have to lead by example, which is unfortunate. I don't think that the system promotes people coming out and talking about these things. The fact that I even say coming out, like as if it's the framing of this is so backwards, right? And that's the problem here. I would just say find the people that you are comfortable with, your friends, right? Your colleagues or your friends who you can turn to for support, whether it's professional or mentorship or as a friend, and rely on them and bond with them, right? Misery loves company. I don't love the phrase, but I think unfortunately right now, at least in Big Law I can speak to, that is very much where life is at for most associates that I've spoken with. And there's no easy fix, but I think if you talk to folks that are in the same position as you and you can at least bounce ideas off of each other and be compassionate with each other, it helps.
Absolutely. I think, and to your point, I just want to make sure everybody knows not everybody's miserable, right? We all know this, right? But there is this huge tendency where we end up down that road, even if we were at a job that we loved, whether it's just a change in management or a change in coworkers, or just a change in our own responsibilities as we get promoted and are expected to do more work, it can wear on us. And so, like as Julian said, that misery loves company. Find your people, your support. Maybe those are people you originally have minor complaints with, and then you just kind of raise those stakes together. But we all have our levels and our times. Sometimes it's also just our home lives that are impacting our work. And at that time, work is bothering us because of our home lives as well. And then we get through it, right? Just make sure you have that support team. Pamela, did you have anything to add?
Yes, it's when you really are on the ground and you see, what happens in the life of a lawyer. Say, for example, if you have someone that has maybe 4 children under school age, and even if we took it, if it was a male, and in this day and time, even younger lawyers, they participate with their children. So they get up in the morning, they're rushing to get the kids off to preschool or whatever that is, and then going to their practice, and then different things coming and calls and their the demands and cases that they're not familiar with and they've not done before, and then they have adversarial opposing counsel, so they have all that pressure all day. And then the kids, there may be something for the kids, and then they go home and have dinner with the kids, help the kids go to bed, and then maybe after 8 o'clock, then finish their work from the day, only to do that the next day. And so this is like real life, so we're saying, we can say, oh, get a support buddy, or, talk to someone, but they don't even have time to eat. So, it's really, this is it's like the real world. So really, a lawyer really needs to do is they really need to get a support team. This isn't something that happens haphazardly. So you're going to either find someone in your firm. Maybe it's someone you went to law school with. It could be someone across the country, but someone that you can check in with on a regular basis so that you can compare notes and you can let off steam. You have a therapist. I mean, most clients that I have also work with the therapist, and because they need that psychological help to get through, it's like being in a battle zone. And a lot of lawyers are really suffering with PTSD. So, they may have had some sort of childhood trauma anyway. And then we're practicing law, they're like in a battleground. It brings up those things. So they would need to deal with that with the therapist. Then they need to have a coach. And just finally, I'll say, just like one time a lawyer called me who became a client, and says, I have a case, I have a trial on Monday. I'm so frozen, I can't even get started. I don't know what to do. And I have to be a trial. And it was really a simple thing like, okay, let's make a list. What are the first 5 things you're going to do? When you do those 5 things, call me back and let's do the next 5 things. Is he intelligent? Is he very, very bright? But all of those pressures, add up. And then all of a sudden they're literally frozen and they can't really even perform. And this happens a lot with performance of lawyers in work, is because it's not because they're not bright. It's not because they aren't intelligent. It's not even because they don't know what to do. It's probably easier to go to email than deal with this case, check email or social media, rather than dealing with this whole, like, give me a break. I need a pressure relief. So it's very important, because I always say practicing law is not like it's not like, running a 5K. It's a triathlon. So, or maybe, even an Ironman. So, you don't do that without support. And so support is absolutely necessary. Younger lawyers are now much more open of talking about that. Even on LinkedIn, they're sharing their struggles and they're making it okay to talk about these struggles. So younger lawyers, baby boomers, not so much, but younger lawyers get support, meet, have lunch once a week, or reach out to old school buddies, say, hey, how are you doing? Hey, can we talk once a week, and kind of just bounce off our pressures with each other, because your mates really don't want to hear it. They're in over their heads. So anyway, I've said enough on that.
No, that was great, Pamela. And what you talked about freezing, it absolutely happens. I had a day, I don't think it was any special day, but I just walked into my office and I sat down and I could not move. I couldn't decide between checking my voicemail, checking my email, checking my physical mail, preparing for upcoming hearings. I was in an industry that had constant, like I could have 5, 7 hearings a day. I mean, sorry, a week, not a day, usually, or preparing my reports for the ones I had just attended. So I had like 5 things to do. I, for some reason, just couldn't pick a priority. And I sat there for a few minutes and finally said, you know what? It doesn't even matter what you pick. You just need to pick something to go, because nothing will get done if you keep sitting here. So I picked something. I said, okay, I'm going to prepare for the rest of my hearings. And the minute I started to move towards that, I froze and said, no, no, no. I must do the reports from the ones I just attended. So I moved in that direction. But the minute I started to move in that direction, I started arguing with myself again. And it happened about 5 times before I finally said, all right. Well, actually, what I did was I had some essential oils in my desk, and I had never used them for stress before, but they are known for stress relief. And I had used some of them on a little diffuser thing, and it had kicked in. And so that little difference made it so that I could pick something. And I just did it, and I was able to move forward. And it wasn't until a little bit later that I realized it must have been the oils, because the oils had been going for like a minute at that point when I actually made that decision. And then I started using that. That was in my toolbox after that day. But that frozen feeling, it feels so overwhelming and so ridiculous at the same time, because you're like, I know what I need to do. I will have to do everything. But, if I'm not prepared for tomorrow's hearing, that's going to be bad. So that's probably what I should do first. Logically, today, I can tell you that. But at that moment, there was just too many urgent things, and it was too much. And we face that all the time. As lawyers, it's just everything's so important. So it's really important to have some tools in your toolbox and have a lot of tools so that you can mix it up when you need to. Olga, any last thoughts on that?
We put a lot of focus on people who already not well, but this is not a black and white challenge. It's a continuum, and even if you are well, whatever that means, being around people who aren't can be taxing. We overemphasize, the 11%. We underemphasize folks who may be trending there, or folks who are affected by the 11%. So the impact of lack of wellness is much larger than 11%, and 11% is not a small number. I think it's Julian who said, find like-minded people. That's mitigating. That's what we have to do today. But I think the realization is that we're all affected by it, whether we are kind of in the epicenter of 11% or on the periphery around. And so it's not a me problem or a Julian problem or a Pamela problem, or it's an us problem. And I think until we as a profession embrace it as us problem, independent if Olga specifically is a part of 11% or not, we don't have a sustainable solution. We don't have a legal practice that attracts top talent and allows lawyers to practice on top of their license. And so there needs to be sort of a more systematic approach where we normalize, educate folks about identifying, give them permission to self-help, seek help, take time off, give them tools to practice on top of their license. This is a bouquet of challenges. Yes, law schools can start the trends. Yes, the various bar organizations from national to state to local can do something about it. Yes, we need to embrace other professionals because the reality is right now we're talking about mental health. We don't have a medical professional here. And that's the one person who is missing in this conversation. Yes, Pamela does more of this every day, but there are people who are also medical doctors and help with that as well. We as a professional should invite other professionals into our practice and help us get better collectively, not just as 11%, but collectively as a sustainable profession that no pressure upholds the tenets of democracy, so to speak, and have a very important place in a civil society.
Yeah, that's well said, Olga. And as C. Loftus mentioned, something that you just mentioned, which is that state bar lawyer assistance programs are out there to support lawyers and people in the legal industry in general, which is always great. And it's interesting because I think we forget about those resources, and so we don't necessarily use them. And then I think people also are afraid to join them. And there's also a nationwide organization called the Other Bar that is for anyone in the legal industry that has either addiction, substance abuse issues, or enabler. So unlike AA and Al-Anon, which separate the enablers and the addicts or ex-addicts, this puts them all together and gives lawyers a chance to vent no matter where they are in that spectrum, because a lot of times that is actually a spectrum as well. So there are different organizations out there. I think part of the problem is remembering they're there when we need them. And I think also just getting the word out more frequently, because when we hear about these organizations, we may not be thinking about our mental health at that moment. And when we need it, we don't remember. So getting the word out more and more often and discussing what they do so that when we might need them, they're there and we're ready to use them is so important. So thanks, guys. Okay, so let's see question number 3. So how does mental health, good mental health, affect lawyers' effectiveness, their happiness, all that good stuff? So let's see. We'll start with you, Olga.
Oh, I think it's almost easier to say how it doesn't affect, right? Because the effect, as I started talking about, yes, if you're in the 11%, you may have challenges. And yes, those 89% will experience that as well, either in the form of, carrying a workload or feeling the mental pressure of helping and feeling helpless, or in gazillion other ways. So it is an us and a we problem, not an individual problem. And we should be addressing it. And by we, I mean the bars and the law schools, and yes, the individual employers. I've seen recently on LinkedIn a debate to what extent your employer should be proactively giving you tools and educating you. And there's a very kind of lively debate. As someone who now leads a company and have many people under my care, I can tell you that any health issues, from physical health issues to mental health issue to health issue in your family, will be affecting my company. During COVID, I've had folks who had mental challenges. I've had folks who had COVID. I had folks who had death in the family. And I can tell you this challenge was affecting, yes, the individual contributor, and yes, everyone on the team. And so, yes, if you are leading teams, if you're an employer, if you're somehow under delusion that those are an I problem, those aren't. And so we need to, in the same way as we grow to expect from our employers benefits, time off, working conditions that are decent, we should also expect support for our physical and mental well-being, because it is not an I problem, it's a we problem.
I love that. That's such a great point. And it goes a little bit to what Julian was saying, where it's, a bit of the top down. We need to have those people understanding that we're all in this together. And certainly I worked for a nationwide corporation for 12 years, and I took several leaves of absence. I think I took 3. I've lost count at this point, but there were deaths in my family at one point. There, was other stuff going on at another point. I mean, there was just things happening, and I needed a moment. And working for such a large company, we did have the benefit of being paid for some time off. And all of those leaves were technically under mental health, because there was nothing physically wrong with me, but I needed a moment. I was not going to be able to perform well for my clients and be focused. And I had things to take care of. And we all need that. And we need a company that, or firm or whatever it is, that, has that we mentality, because we are all working together. One, just together in a physical sense, we should hopefully be friendly together, but also we're working together to please all the clients, even if some are dedicated to one attorney or whatnot. We all want the firm or the company to look its best. So we all need to make decisions together. And the more that a company or firm does that, you're going to see, I think, overall better results, from the cases to the just, interactions between employees. And I want to remind everybody, while I'm talking for a moment, to go ahead and keep those questions and those comments coming, because we do have Q&A at the end as well, and the prizes, but also we're incorporating some of those as we go. So Pamela, how does mental health, help an attorney be effective and happy and all that good stuff?
Well, the World Health Organization talks about health being physical and emotional and mental. So that, when we compartmentalize, everyone who has stress doesn't have a mental problem. Everyone that's experiencing anxiety isn't having a mental problem. They can be having, if it's chronic, it can lead into a mental problem. But basically, we want to, it's really about an education, and it's about really transforming the culture. The truth is, because, since this report, there are many, many resources. There's like Lawyer Wellbeing Week that's put on by the Institute for Wellbeing in Law, and they have all kind of panels, and they have all that. Whenever you talk with the big law firms, they have departments specifically that lawyers can come to talk to if they have problems. So there's more resources than had ever been before. But when it comes down to, and I really like what Olga was saying, is it's a we problem. From as an employer, they want to look at it as a we problem. But on an individual basis, each lawyer, no matter how many resources there are, if the individuals do not take advantage of them, or if they don't specifically take responsibility for their own well-being, what good are these resources? So it's up to each lawyer. For example, if there's some simple things, just like how you start your morning. If you start your morning, how we start our morning, I think all of us can attest, ends up how our day is going to be. So, are we going to, stay up real late, drinking or watching movies, scanning the internet, wake up behind the 8 ball, race through, throw some clothes on, get to the office, and now you have a crappy day. But if you have the discipline, that's why I say it's like a triathlon, the discipline. I've got to get to bed on time. I have a pressure job. I need to get on bed on time. I need to have breakfast. I need to have physical exercise. I need to not eat, a bunch of sugar and things like that, because I have a pressure job. You can't act like you don't have a job that's pressure. So you want to really, it's like physical activity, eating, nutrition, getting sufficient rest. Those are just the basics. If you do that, you're going to react to stress a lot differently than if you don't. And also, when we get to the, there's continuous learning. There's continued, now bar associations require that they take ethics, that they do have to take some CLEs on lawyer well-being. So, educate yourself, take advantage of those things, seeing the importance. Don't minimize your emotions, because emotions are real. And in the past, it was like, doesn't matter how you feel, just do the work. And there are still firms that feel that way, but it's the lawyer's job to find out what do they need to do. And there's no one size fits all. What do I need to do that makes me feel grounded, makes me feel my best, so that I can do my best? Because each one of us is different. Like what it takes for me is going to be different than what Julian needs, or what Olga needs, or what you need, Jolene. So we each individually have to say, okay, I need 7 hours of sleep, or I need 6 hours of sleep, or I need to eat 2 meals a day, or I need to walk for 30 minutes. We all have to determine, because when it comes down to it, each lawyer they're going to be the one who's having issues. They're going to be having issues, and it's based on decisions that they make. So, the lawyers, the law firms, they're really making that effort to educate, provide resources, but it's up to each of us. And also, the last thing I'm going to say about that is, one of the things that lawyers, as a rule, have this isolation. They're working, it's like silos. And, just going out and connecting with another person can make such a difference in a day. If they're in there working and just like, okay, I got to do this discovery, I have to do this, I have to do this, then, they get in themselves and they get, stressed out. But being able to be connect, even if it's with the paralegal or secretary, don't just be an island to yourself. And that's a part of well-being as well. So just the emotional, occupational, social, intellectual, physical, and spiritual, like meditating. Some people will meditate. I have some clients that they will never meditate. You can tell them, they'll never meditate. So whatever it is for you, find out what it is. Is it looking at a comedies on Netflix? Is it, looking at videos? Something that I like to do is I like to look at I'm a dog lover. And so I watch the videos on these dogs they rescue, and then the dog is, whatever. And it just takes my mind off and makes me feel happy when the dog is happy and he's got his forever home. So that's my thing. So we all find out what our thing is, something that makes us laugh, something that makes us relax, and allow us to take responsibility for ourselves.
I love that, Pamela. That was very well said. A lot of good points in what you said. And absolutely, I see a lot of us, we're so on this path to partnership when that may not be what we actually want. And we're not checking in with ourselves. We're not listening to ourselves. And we really need to, there are different environments, as Olga alluded to earlier. There's different environments. There are we environments in firms. And if that's, Maybe not everyone needs that because everyone is different, but if that's what you need to be at mental peace in a firm, then make sure you find that we environment. And there's ways to do that through the interview process. And, if you got a job and it turns out it's not a we environment, leave. There's other jobs out there. I always made sure my firms didn't make me travel too much. The courthouses were always within about an hour, and I didn't have high billables. Those were pretty much my two main requirements. Nice people as well, but that was super important to me. And yeah, everyone's a little different, but I just was like, I don't want to slave away at these high billables. It's not worth it for me and my mental health. And, as I was given promotions, I declined them because I knew that wasn't my happy place. And we have to really check in with ourselves and know what we want and find that place. Julian? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was, and sorry, I interrupted. I think we often emphasize what I think is bare minimum: eating well, exercising, sleeping. That is table stakes. That is not a good life. That's just what you need to survive. But you need much more to be happy. And we need to start talking about it. I'm aware that sometimes basics are missing, and we are so focused on the basics. But like I remember I was in the law firm, and at the time was dating that boyfriend who later became my husband. And that was seen as a nice to have. And I can tell you that to me, it wasn't. It was a must have. And I've had conversations walking out of my place of employment where various folks commented that 7:00 was a little too early. And it was important for me to have dinner with what I knew would become my partner, my husband, and the father of my children. No, it's not sleep or food or or even exercise, but very important. We need to realize that when you need to be a full person before you become a full lawyer. And we need to allow people to have that free time, fun time, to show up as themselves, have life outside of their place of work. That doesn't just include, the basic necessities of sleeping, exercising, and eating well and breathing oxygen. Yeah, you have to have that. But you need to be a fulfilled person. You need to have usually much more than that.
Yeah.
So just the bar for a full lawyer should be, a full human first, and we should resource that accordingly.
I love that phrase, Olga. You should be a full person. You need to be a full person to be a full lawyer. We absolutely need to maintain our identity, know what's important to us, and make sure we do it. So, and like you said, it's not even just that top level of important to us. It's more than that. So something important to keep in mind. Julian, any last thoughts as we wrap up?
No, I would just mention, that I think the original question here was, how will better mental health impact the attorney's work product or generally how we work, right? And I just want to make the point that what I noticed in big law and in many ways a lot of the legal industry is we don't really like to use our imagination and innovate very much by way of like improving the processes, like growing, like being more interesting and different. And I would just add that when you're struggling with mental health issues, you can't really afford to use your imagination and delve into that creative side of whatever it is you want to bring to the table energetically to your firm or to your business. You're just trying to get by and not be miserable. So I would only add that I think mental health will, of course, help everybody because we'll all be happier lawyers, and that's just better for the world, better for our profession. But I think it will also have a subsequent effect of making people more creative and letting people be more open-minded about different types of workflows and systems and processes, which will just help the whole system as a whole. Because right now, in my opinion, it's a lot of people at the top making a lot of money and deciding we're just not going to change the system because it works for us. This is my view, no one else's.
No, that is a great point, Julian, because there are so many things that need to be changed in the industry right now, not just mental health wise, but tech wise, a lot of firms are behind. And even the ones that are kind of doing okay are still really technically behind too. So it's, but yeah, there's these few people making decisions that affect everyone. And if we had, for example, even just better tech, we might have more time that would give us that room in our heads to be creative on our cases, which can help our clients exponentially, really, and help ourselves because we feel creative when we feel good. We came up with some amazing solution. And yeah, I certainly know I had a case once where I did not want to follow the traditional path. I had a crazy idea and it went up several levels, and somebody high up in the company was like, "What are you doing?" And I explained my theory, and they thought, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, go do it." And I was like, "Thank you." But how often do we get to be creative? That one just kind of came to me, but it's really hard when we're so overworked, and when we need to get those fast results. That yeah, we need to get in those billable hours, and the creativity goes out the door, and that's some of the fun and some of the the
Well,
happiness
but
there.
that's exactly the problem, right? Measuring the value of a lawyer and a legal contribution in hours is a little bit like measuring wine by the pound. It's just not a good measure of quality of a wine. And I think Julian just alluded to the fact that this system, is designed to sort of enrich a few. It is ultimately to some extent a pyramid system. And if you happen to not be at the very top, you will feel the pressure. And the lower you go, the more pressure you feel, as you would in any pyramid. And that's a challenge, right? The conversation about billable hours becomes very political very quickly. And the weight of that problem is sort of felt throughout the organization and throughout the profession. And when Pamela says, "Look, we're no longer tapped by dentists," and that's partially because we still have this very dated system that is very hierarchical, that doesn't truly measure the value of any one of us brings at any given day. And the pressure is sometimes too much. That compounded with the fact that we are not educated or have resources or feel comfortable using them. So there is sort of a systemic challenge of not valuing the impact of your work and measuring it by the hour.
Yeah, I never thought of the legal industry as kind of a pyramid scheme, but I think you're right, Olga. There's a bit of that in there. So, okay, guys, this is it. This concludes the panel discussion. Thank you so much to our panelists. We're now going to open it up to questions from our guests. So, guys, if you have questions, I know you've been asking some throughout. Go ahead, though, if you have more questions, ask them in the group chat. You can address them to one panelist in particular if it's something maybe that they said that triggered your question, or you can just address it to no one, and we'll pick one for you. And just remember, we do have a prize from Elevation that you get 7 days of meditation, and it's basically for lawyers, so people in the legal industry. It's really focused to help those of us who have those stressors. So go ahead and run wild with your questions, guys. And let's see. I'm gonna just see. Hold on here while we get the questions going. And it should pop up on the screen. So that's what I'm kind of waiting for here. Let's see. If I don't see one soon, I'll just go up on the screen. I'll just go ahead and go back through one. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. So do you think that lawyers can experience anxiety in the courtroom? Olga, why don't you go ahead and take this one?
I'm probably look. I am a former litigator, was at a big law, and but I also had an opportunity to be a DA in San Francisco under Kamala, and so I've had that experience for about 9 months, and you know, it is being in the courtroom. There's something, being sort of in the spotlight, whether you're just doing sort of daily arraignments, arguing motions, or actually leading a trial and trying to convince judge or the jury. That is very stressful. Part of it is public speaking, part of it because you're dealing with human lives, right? People who end up in court usually feel strongly about what happened. And usually we're talking about liberties, or we're talking about sort of financial well-being, or rights to property, children, whatever. I mean, high stakes. That's kind of in summary. So you have a lot of pressure. You're in the spotlight, and you're judged. I mean, yeah, it's a recipe for feeling stressed. Even for somebody who, like myself, who generally likes public speaking and feels at ease, when have a spotlight. And so there is something, I think, completely normal about that. However, that could be too much. And, we also during COVID found out that there are ways, we don't have to continue our legal system in the way where we show up and argue. We see technology being kind of part of our lives, where a lot of hearings and conferences and even oral arguments are not happening in the spotlight in the 12th century building with a lot of pressure. Like, it doesn't have to be this way. We have embraced technology in every part of our lives. And the fact that, Lady Justice still uses books, 12th century building, and no technology actually makes no sense. And what I love about COVID is that it kind of put a mirror in front of the legal profession and asked, an inadvertent question: why is the tradition so important? And do we have to keep all of it to do justice? And I think we all now know the answer is that, if we care about justice, there may be a better way to do it. I'm very cognizant that COVID has not been kind to everyone, from financial loss to life loss. But I think there's something we have gained as a society and as a profession, that I think we now have a much clearer sense of why law is important, that tradition does not have to be there for society to be just, and that we can alleviate pressures, costs, increase our satisfaction with life, and frankly get to justice sooner and better if we embrace, one, help of other professionals, and two, of technology.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I know that across the board, regardless of how people feel about virtual depositions or hearings, that the one thing that they are happy about is the lack of commuting to the depositions and hearings. And especially here in Los Angeles, where our traffic is horrible, we are more than happy to be at home or even just in a locked office somewhere doing all these things. So even if we have technology complaints, we're not complaining about the lack of traffic. Okay, so there is another question also by David Donahue. Okay, I'll come to that one in a minute. Let's do Lori since hers is on the screen. What programs are in place for law school students to educate and help prevent some of the struggles they are facing after they graduate? What resources are there, and how are they made aware of them? Pamela, why don't I give you that one?
Okay. Law schools are are being more proactive with regard to changing and providing resources for young lawyers, not on a large scale, but to a degree. I think that they have the Young Lawyers Associations, and they have mentoring programs where aspiring lawyers or students who are in law schools are able to get help and support. It is in the United States, it is not as prevalent as it should be. There are speakers that are going to sit in certain schools, and they are talking about lawyer well-being. The lawyer well-being report did also include law students, which was the incidence of alcoholism and so forth was higher than the numbers I quoted earlier for law students. So, you know, I don't have a really good answer for that because there's not been provided. The law schools are, you know, business as usual, and they haven't really caught up yet with that. Although there are some progressive schools who are providing that, but I wouldn't really be able to tell you which schools they are.
Yeah, it's really, unfortunately, not a universal system. So it's really well hidden. A lot of and there's, other types of programs as well that are, again, not a universal system. If you just are interested in a very specific type of law that's not really considered a type of law yet, there might be schools that have an elective. And so it would be great if there was a little more sharing amongst the law schools so that we could get this information to the people and just help everybody a little more. Okay, so let's see. So yes, David's question for Julian. Do you feel like social media affects mental health in a bad way, or maybe it's the opposite?
Yeah, I wish it were the opposite. No, I think social media in general is not good for emotional and mental health simply because, and look, everyone has been talking about this, right? You're not getting a clear picture of what people's lives are like. You're getting a very skewed picture. It's going to look usually a lot prettier. I would honestly feel different about social media if on average people were being real and authentic and showing their struggles and showing like the downsides, but that's not the world we're in right now, right? At least in my generation, like younger millennials, like we had Facebook and that kind of morphed into Facebook/Instagram, where now it's just everything's curated. TikTok maybe in some ways is good, but honestly, in many ways it's the same thing. It's just been repurposed to be short form video with a lot of different creative elements. And so I think, yeah, we should be mindful about how we're using social media and very acutely monitor our emotional health and how we feel when we use it and after we use it. Because if you're using it for education or entertainment a little bit, then go for it. But even then, it can get dangerous because of the implicatory effects you're telling yourself by consuming this media that is people you know or people that you think you know, when you have no idea what their life is actually like, and it always looks better than it does on the inside. So, yeah, I think it's definitely an issue.
Absolutely, Julian. I couldn't agree more. Even on a platform like LinkedIn, it's meant to be very professional, and yeah, we share some personal stuff on there, and it's maybe a little bit lighter personal than what you see on, Instagram or Facebook or something like that. But I just had someone basically say that they assumed my husband was taking care of me when I started my business. And I was like, oh, how nice of you to assume that. But it impacted me. It really upset me because it was just like, you don't know anything about me. So, honestly, even an offhand comment where it's not even, I know she didn't mean anything by it, but it can bring you down, and that's just the unintentional. So yeah.
Can I
Definitely.
maybe add some drama and disagree?
Sure.
Yes, I mean, social media is not a perfect tool. And yes, I'm with Julian and you that, people get a glimpse and make all kinds of assumptions. But I can't tell you how important social media has been during COVID, and how much power I've seen of LinkedIn, and how much progress we've made on LinkedIn and in sharing who we are as people. No, we don't show up always fully. It's not full disclosure, but it is a powerful tool. During COVID, myself and 13 other women, we wrote a book supporting each other, lawyers across the United States. I've never met, I've been in-house lawyer most of my career, been a little bit at a law firm. Some 13 lawyers who are normally not even in my sort of network, partially because of geographical reasons, partially because they practice very different laws than I do. We sort of crossed paths and shared our journey and had a really great moment supporting each other and help inspiring others and having real conversations. It's just like, social media is a tool. It's like a knife. You can kill with it and you can cure with it. The tool itself is in the neutral tool. It's in the hands of us that we use it and misuse it, that it could be used for good and it could be not used for good. I definitely seen this, the power of social media during COVID, and I find it to be a very powerful tool. I am grateful now that increasingly number of lawyers show up more fully. I am even more pleased to see in-house lawyers who I deeply care about to show up more fully. I've formed friendships and alliances and support groups, and in the process have shared sort of things that happened to me in the past and today. And I can't tell you how many people sort of get back to me and thank me for that. And yes, people assume all kinds of things. Sometimes people like to project who they are. There are folks who project various things. On my life, for example, I had a few people who assume that I'm a single mother. I'm not a single mother. In fact, I'm most definitely not a single mother. Not only do I have a life partner who's been very helpful and supportive, I also have a mother who helps me every day. So I'm definitely not single parenting. And, that just, led to a post where I clarified that, but people, they may project me, they may misunderstand, language is ambiguous, pictures are ambiguous. So sometimes people only show parts of themselves, and sometimes the recipient sees what she wants to see, right? But in that conversation and that I've been using, in that exchange, you can still use it for good. And you can still support each other. So I actually increasingly much more open-minded about social media as a tool. And I definitely have seen many instances of it being used for good during pandemic. And I love the progress that we as lawyers have made in the way we show up and what kind of topics we think are professional to discuss on places like LinkedIn.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's definitely that positive side as well.
I wanted to echo that really LinkedIn has transformed post-pandemic. I've been on LinkedIn for almost a couple of decades, and the LinkedIn that I started posting on is completely different than how it has post COVID, and there is really a sense of community. And you actually share, like my brother died recently, and I was able to share, usually you wouldn't share that on LinkedIn, but I shared as I was, walking through his, being there for him when he died. And then when he actually died, I've been able to, share, about when my granddaughter graduated from Yale. And I must say that there are more millennials and Gen X on I'm a boomer. So there's, the younger generation, and a lot of the boomers are like, well, LinkedIn is more like Facebook now, or like TikTok, but I think it's a good improvement. And I think people are communities. My book is being published tomorrow, in November, which is thriving in a multi-generational law firm. And the British publisher approached me based on the 250 articles that I've written on LinkedIn. So, there's so much that happens behind the scenes in LinkedIn as well. And I just think it's only going to get better, because as Olga, I know you're part of, you must be part of Networked, right? I bought the book. And I was like, where do these people come from?
Thank you.
All of a sudden, post-COVID, there were all these, and I have relationships with some of the women that are in Network, but it's really, it can be good. The only caution I have is, like I was talking to someone earlier, is you have to schedule when to be on there and not let it take up your whole day, because it could. But other than that, I think you can really, post-COVID, it was a major shift in LinkedIn specifically.
Yeah. And like I said, pros and cons, and definitely LinkedIn. I do feel like at this point, anywhere I travel in the US, I have someone I can visit, and would not hesitate to reach out to, because yes, the connections on LinkedIn are definitely more, I think, solid. But yeah, just be careful out there. So, and congrats to both you guys on the books. So, all right. So let's see the next question from Megan. What if my partner isn't a lawyer? How can I share my mental health issues with them? Let's see. So let's go back to let's do Julian.
Yeah. Hey, Megan. It's a fair question, and I think in the law and outside of the law, everywhere we all need to work on this. I would just say you should be open and transparent with them in as neutral a way as you can be, right? I think if there's some hesitation for, oh, what if I say this, this is my partner, and then they react poorly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think the calmer and more collected you are, which I know the burden should not, let me be clear, the burden should not be for the person with the mental health issues to like jump through all these hoops to placate the other person's like ability to understand what we're going through. But here we are in 2021. And so I think if you do it in a calm way, in a collective way, in a way that's focused on you, not the other person, right, et cetera, I think it's a great place to start, right? And you can see where the conversation goes, but hopefully your partner is very supportive. And if they are, I'm sure, the conversation will hopefully be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's hard for us as lawyers. We have so much of a burden, and people in other professions, depending on their profession, especially, may not really understand all that we go through. And so that's where I think having some of these legal organizations is super helpful so that you can dump more quickly, I think, on them. Because you can say in a few words something and they get it because they're lawyers. They understand, oh yes, so you've got the billable hour conflicting with this, conflicting with that, versus your partner. So the partner should really be getting, I don't know, maybe that almost like the top sheet, right? Like as lawyers, we say we top sheet a file, the top sheet, so that, yeah, we're not explaining, well, yeah, but this conflicts with that. And there's all these problems. And yeah, because like as Julian said, you don't want to make it hard on yourself to explain it all. And then you don't want to also make it hard for them to receive the information. But there's a lot we go through and it's multi-level. I think we have time for one more question before we wrap up. Okay, so let's see, how to not let this responsibility become another burden. So I'm assuming that's the responsibility of being a lawyer and, just handling everything we have to handle. Olga, you want to take this one?
Oh man, how do you not make it a burden? That's a tough one. Really, I think, I love what Julian said about the burden of proof. And we collectively should be well aware when we have conversations who has it. And we see that challenge kind of in all aspects from DEI, when people ask, why should we have, representation as opposed to what is the problem with not having it? And similarly, why should we give tools as opposed to asking, why should we not? Why, how we are doing without them. I think, in the end, instead of sort of adding various things that you should be learning and should be doing, I find it sometimes, and I think it was Julian who said, we lack imagination. I actually find it helpful to start from imagination. Like, where would I like to be? Let me imagine a beautiful destination. And then back into how to get there, as opposed to pile up various stuff and do increasing number of them and hope that I end up there. Because I feel like when you start with a destination, you then find a straightforward path to getting there, without kind of scenic route. And you find solutions that, that address more than one challenge. So, for example, it may be that, you could do a million things that will help you be better. But it could be that you specifically only need to exercise in the morning or take a nightly walk and a lot of things would be nice to have, but you can do without them, right? Because it's sort of you knowing yourself and you defining your destination. And you see this kind of in kind of both career, personal, professional. I think it's having this moment and imagining where you want to go, and then do some research to see who've gotten there already and the paths they took, and then imagine all the ways you can get there. There is no one way to get it to SFO. There are many ways to get to SFO. You can take BART, you can take taxi, you can take a helicopter, you can crawl. And it really just depends which one works best for you. But I do find that instead of sort of, I need to get another check thing to do daily, weekly, whatever, you need to imagine where you want to go, both professionally, personally, whatever that means to you, and then back into the solution. Because you'll find a lot of those things is just noise. They're nice to have. They may not be for you. You only need to do 5-7 things as opposed to 200. And 200 may get you there too, but maybe you can get there with 5 to 7. That generally, I think, is just works for both sort of personal, professional, and really, frankly, business challenges.
I just
Awesome.
wanted to say that one of the things that's really, really important is not to compare yourself with someone else. And that's something that in the legal profession, is that, that's like with social media, you're looking at them, oh, why am I not doing this? So if you can stop looking at everyone else, determine who you are, what are your needs, and then proceed and not try to live your life based on how you see everyone else. Because people compare their insides based on others' outsides. And so you don't want to do that. You want to really look at what is your needs and not try to run a race that you're not meant to run.
Beautiful, guys. Thank you so much to our panelists. It is now time to give away our prizes. So now 2 authors of the most outstanding questions will walk away with a prize from our partner, Elavation. That's their mission is to encourage our lawyers and to help themselves before they help others. It's going to be 7 days of guided meditation to radically reduce stress, improve your focus and concentration, build resilience, and elevate your life. So there were several really good questions. And so I have been asked to pick two somebody's, and I just can't. So here's my pen, and I'm going to point at the names I've been writing down because there were some really good questions. So here we go. Person number 1 is Miles Young. And person number 2 is David Donahue. So panelists, thank you again for your contribution. Attendees, thank you for your questions and contributions.
Our pleasure.
Thank you so much, everyone, to join us today. And also, I just wanted to mention that 2 winners, please contact Lorena's team via Facebook or LinkedIn. So we will contact concerning subscriptions to 7-day meditation. And also thank you, our panelists. I just wanted to add that all registered participants will get after the webinar checklist on stress management for lawyers with even more tips on how to manage your stress, how to understand your level of stress, and how to cope with it on your daily basis. So thank you so much for this great discussion and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ready.